Imagine being stranded on a 2,000-foot high radio tower in the middle of nowhere. Now, despite the tower being an abandoned antenna, you can't get a signal on your phone. You barely have space to move, and you're literally inches away from death. In today's video, we will follow the terrifying journey of two friends who become trapped on a nauseatingly high tower, look closely at the mistakes they make, and figure out strategies that could have helped them be better prepared and perhaps even help them beat the great fall they are likely to experience. Welcome to How to Beat the Tower in Fall 2022. Let's go. The story revolves around two protagonists, two friends, Becky and Hunter. Their lives are all about conquering fears and pushing limits to satiate their never-ending need for adrenaline. They love to climb up things they shouldn't, and so one day, they and one of the protagonist's husbands, Dan, decide to have their irregular adventure dose by going on a steep mountain climb. Now, during this terrifying expedition that would petrify anyone to death, Dan literally dies. Let's understand a few things before we continue. Mountain climbing expeditions are no joke, right? You need to be focused. It doesn't matter if you're climbing with a team or solo, you are on your own. No steps can be made for you, and no one can take away the fear of falling but yourself. Similarly, you can't be focusing on what happens around you. Your job is to find the best spots to place your hooks at, and then trust it enough to hook your harness onto it. A slight disturbance in your focus, momentum, and grip, and you'll be risking to fall into a quite nasty death that won't just end with you slapping onto the ground like a failed pancake flip. Nope, you'll likely be hitting the sharp edges of the mountain multiple times before some parts of you eventually make it down back to earth. From what it seems, the group is trying to climb something approximating 1,000 feet. But I see no climbing helmet nor rock climbing shoes. Even a safety harness looks flimsy to me. I mean, it barely offers any safety or support. It seems like they just tied a rope around their waists and decided to go climbing, hoping to survive. You see, extreme sport athletes don't hope, they prepare. Our characters haven't, and therefore the price must be paid. Even a year after Dan's death, Becky doesn't seem to be able to come out of her grief. Her relationship with her father is also strained because he basically thinks her late husband was an asshole, and that clearly doesn't help. Perhaps he's projecting because that is something a typical asshole would say about a dead person, but I am just speculating. Anyways, Becky literally gives up on her life and tries to numb her pain with pills. But then, out of nowhere, Hunter's call brings her back to her feet. She proposes Becky to climb a 2,000-foot high radio tower in a remote deserted area to get her will to live back up again. And, of course, to honor her late husband by spreading his ashes high up into the sky. From listening to that conversation, I can assure you that the last part, spreading his ashes on top of the tower, was the last idea she added to that sick endeavor to convince her lovely friend. At this point, I am not sure if Hunter is Becky's friend or just selfish, because Becky at this point is completely devastated, and climbing high structures requires straight up mental fortitude, which she doesn't have. So I'm a bit divided here. To stop doing something you love because you once failed at it and then developed a fear of it can only be regained by doing the same thing again and literally surmount that fear. So whether Hunter is just selfish and wants to climb that thing for her own sake, or truly desires Becky to overcome her fear and finally let the past rest in the past, I think if Becky wants her life back, a challenge like this might be the best thing to aid her on that journey. However, it would be welcome to prepare better than last time, which we already know won't happen. So, Hunter and her dead husband, I guess, managed to convince her to go on this adventure. Little did she know that this little adventure was going to be her worst nightmare and will cause her more pain than seeing Dan's severed body lying next to her. And that's something, right? So, Our girls reach the mighty tower and see a big signboard saying "No trespassing, danger of death." But that's not something that wasn't expected, and so lo and behold, the chicks make their way through and approach that insanely high looking tower. If you ask me, conquering old man-made structures that haven't been maintained in ages is never a good idea, especially when the material that was used to build that structure is susceptible to decay. And metal, dear friends who too have skipped chemistry class, can oxidate, aka rust, and then lose its stability. Also, these warning boards, right? Every insurance claim will be waived off in mere split seconds. That alone would convince me otherwise, because either you are very lucky, or perhaps dead, or at worst, devastatingly handicapped with debts in the six figures. Not something I would wish to anybody. And if all of that wasn't enough, this area is so remote that it would take a very long time for anyone to reach them if necessary. Not even one car passes by when the girls are driving down this road. On such adventures, anything can happen, and if there is no one nearby to call for help, then these unplanned trips are literal suicide. The girls also didn't inform anyone before deciding to ascend such a horrifying tower, which is pure insanity. We've said it multiple times on this channel. If you're not letting anybody know about your sick, insane ideas, then you may run into troubles. Now sure, you are not calling your parents telling them you are going to climb up a decaying radio tower, but at least you can prepare a note that will be found eventually. So, impulsive decisions bring nothing but catastrophe, and you will understand that as the movie proceeds. The girls are brave, agile, and have good vigor, I'll give them that, but they're irresponsible and precarious, and this makes them unfit for this particular risky adventure. While reaching the tower by foot, they see a vulture devouring the severed body of a coyote. However, the coyote is still alive, which signifies that any wound you may suffer around here can be enough to end your life in a slow and painful manner. Once they arrive, Becky almost backs out due to her nerves, but Hunter convinces her to keep going, which I think is very wrong. You need nerves of steel to climb that thing, and hers at this point are decaying just like the tower in front of them. Two facts that are enough for me to call it off and return back home, especially if I was the friend of the person losing it. The girls eventually start to climb up the tower, and you can see how janky this whole structure is. It is most certainly a multiple-decade-old structure, which explains why it is so rusty. My question is, why didn't they do any research before taking on a climbing mission like this? I mean, they could have used a drone to scope out the ladder they use in great detail, which would have revealed its poor condition. So, here's a quick tip. If you're planning to climb or even go hiking an unexplored area and you have a drone available, use it. Just scope out the whole area beforehand so that you can be safe and the thrill you're seeking doesn't end up in agony. You see, knowing that you know the area you're in is a very calming force. On the other hand, the unknown is what scares people off collectively in ways unimaginable. The girls carefully make their way past broken transmitters and go up the steps on exterior ladders. Now several bolts come loose as Hunter messes around while climbing up. As they reach the platform, Becky weeps with elation and spreads Stan's ashes while Hunter revels in their nerve-wracking achievement. However, their joy is short-lived, as from the external ladder where Becky was showing off her stupid stunts to her followers, many screws came off. So eventually, the external ladder crumbles down while Becky tries to descend from the platform. But the worst part is that their backpack with all of their supplies falls off onto the satellite down below. And with that, my friends, begins the journey of the never-ending fear of the Great Fall. See, when you act irresponsibly, calamity is bound to happen. Hunter can clearly see that the condition of the tower is terrible. I mean, it is literally falling apart. It is common sense that if you notice any fragile structure, you don't mess with it. Now things quickly start to take a wrong turn because, surprise surprise, their phones can't find a signal. which at this point has seriously become an old joke on his channel. It's always the same thing in these movies. But to spice things up a bit, the writers of this movie decided to pass Becky a deep cut. So now there is no water, no coverage, and no medical supplies to stop the bleeding. Hunter crafts a tourniquet with a piece of cloth, but apart from halting the bleeding for a while, it won't stop the mess they're heading into. Also, who goes climbing without a first aid kit? Anyway, in a compartment of the tower, they find a set of binoculars and a flare gun, but decide to wait to use it at the right moment. And that is a good call. The flare gun might be the only chance to survive here, so thumbs up for that. But even if the flare gun failed, the lenses of the binoculars would serve well to reflect sunlight and draw attention to them if anybody would spot the flare. At this point, they try to fish for coverage, and well, Hunter decides to dangle down with the phone tied to a rope. While it's true that desperate times call for desperate measures, saving your energy is more important right now. Then suddenly they see two men in the old RV nearby and grab their attention using the flare gun. But they turn out to be douchebags and steal their car instead. Now, the girls are in rough conditions because of course, dehydration and low energy levels. Over the night, Becky watches her wedding videos and notices Hunter looking sullen in the background. Then she sees the 143 tattoo on her ankle, which is something Dan would say as he never liked to utter the words, "I love you." Now, to clarify, the 1 signifies the I, the word love consists of 4 letters, and U is 3 letters. This makes Hunter come clean about her affair with Dan, which is quite a stretch, but we need some subplots here, so there you go. Now, this may not be the straight up survival advice that you guys want, but take this as a life advice or whatever. Never fall for your best friend's girl or guy. That is worse than falling from a 2,000 feet tower. So after all, Becky's father was right. Dan was an asshole. Now the next morning, Hunter climbs down the satellite to reach their bag. After retrieving the bag, she hooks it to her harness and manages to jump from the satellite and use the bag as cushioning. Now until now, I thought many stunts in this movie were logically impossible, but I gave them the benefit of the doubt. Now however, this one clearly defies science because the thin straps would have never held her weight. Moreover, why would she want to return to the platform again? Becky could have used the drone herself and roped water down after seeing that the distance was too much for Hunter to make. Now while trying to climb back, Hunter slips but is pulled back up by Becky. At least that's what it seems like. Now the girls write a note and attach it to the drone, trying to send it to the motel where they came from. But as fate would have it, the batteries of the drone are dead. That does not make any sense, does it? Hunter wanted to film herself atop the tower using the drone to get some good shots. So far the drone was barely used. This left me questioning if Hunter checked the battery status before the mighty climb. I mean, if you want to risk your life for social media clout, but then realize your camera's batteries are dead when you are at the peak, then not only are you reckless, but I'm afraid you also seem to be an idiot. Always check the batteries of your electronics before leaving home for any adventure. And also carry some portable batteries because when you're out in a remote area, you may not find any electricity source straight away. Duh. So now Becky has to climb all the way up to plug the charger into the light outlet, just like Hunter taught her back in the motel. She holds onto the pole for hours to get the drone fully charged, while vultures circle around her as her wounds has started to smell. Now she eventually succeeds in charging the drone, but as the drone reaches the motel, a truck hits it and breaks it into pieces. Well done, ladies. Well done. At this point, Becky starts getting increasingly delirious. She asks Hunter to give her another shoe so that she can throw her own phone to call for help. Hunter refuses to give her her shoe because she wasn't there to begin with. I mean, she was, but now she's not anymore. I hope you can follow. Now let's rewind a little bit. When Hunter slips while retrieving the backpack, she never lands on it. She fell onto the satellite and bled to death. So all this time, Becky was talking to a hallucination. The following day, the vultures start attacking her wound, but her survival instincts kick in. She grabs the vulture by its neck, smashes it until it dies, and then eats its flesh. That's a deadly mistake, guys. Vulture meat would do more harm than good, as it's filled with bacteria. These bacteria are from rotting flesh that these birds eat. The toxic chemicals that these bacteria release make the meat toxic and will be able to kill large animals, including humans. And that, after all those hours up here, would be truly the most ridiculous death I could imagine. But it's a movie, so after her vulture snack, Becky gets back some energy and confidence. Hell yeah. She realizes that she still has one last chance to survive. So instead of an SOS message, she types an emotional message to her father to apologize for how she treated him. She climbs down to the satellite, takes off Hunter's shoe to put her phone in for extra padding, and uses her body for her plan, which is probably the best padding you can find. That's right, she stuffs the shoe into her open stomach and then pushes her body off the satellite so that the message can go out once a signal is found on the way down. It's pretty creative if you ask me, and this quick thinking saves her life. The authorities, including her father, find her on the very same day. Now y'all may find this gruesome and disrespectful, but honestly, when you're trying to survive, you'll have to use any resource available, and even if it's a corpse of your best friend that has slept with your deceased husband and now convince you to risk your life for her own social media clout. Well, in the final scene, Becky and her father reconcile, and as for me, well, I am skipping climbing class next week. Thanks for watching, catch you guys again soon, peace out.